Hello and welcome to West Hill Golf Club and this video on the best drivers of 2021. Now I've got 17 models on the floor in front of me and I've hit all of them using a GC quad launch monitor, using Titleist Pro V1X golf balls, and I've also hit them all on the range here at West Hill. Now we're going to split up the verdict into 5 different categories that you can see here, hopefully to give you the best possible feedback about what to expect from the driver market in 2021. Right. Let's get started. If you were hoping for a driver that looks radically different this year, I think you'll be slightly disappointed because whilst there's no shortage of great looking drivers this year, in fact, there were no ugly ones amongst the group that I tested, it's fair to say that the similarities are more striking than the differences. However, having said that, there are models like the Titleist TSI and the Strixon ZX drivers that are very classic and sort of quite simple to look down behind the ball, which some golfers will really prefer. And then there are other models, ones like the Ping G425 and the TaylorMade Sim 2 that have a slightly more, what I would describe as a more modern look. Now I found it really difficult to sort of narrow down my selection, but here are the sort of what I felt were my 6 favourites down behind the ball. And I wanted to get some feedback from social media, so we put up a photograph of all of them, an address, put them out on our social media channels and asked people to pick which one they like the look of the most. And there were a few interesting things that came out of that. Firstly, it was interesting to see there was a good split of people choosing different drivers, so I think that just shows how subjective this part of the process is. And secondly, in the end, it was the 2 matte black drivers that came out on top in terms of the number of votes, the TaylorMade Sim 2 and the Cobra Radspeed. And the last thing I'll say is quite a few people posting comments about where was the Ping G425, which is another good looking matte black driver as well. For me, if it was my choice and I was basing it purely on the way the drivers looked, I think I'd go for the Cobra Radspeed. I think down behind the ball it's got a beautiful shape. It's also got that kind of modern, quite high-tech look to it as well, but it's all quite subtle. So in all, I think if I was basing my choice purely on looks, I'd go for the Cobra Radspeed. This is a really important and sometimes underrated category. Finding the driver that has the right feel for you will help with your overall chemistry that you have with the driver, and there are some important differences to note between some of the models this year. Some of the models are slightly louder through the ball, slightly higher pitched, ones like the Ping G425 and the Cobra Radspeed, and I think they're really popular amongst those players that like to feel as if they can make a nice smooth swing and still get the ball up and away nicely with good power. And then at the other end, you have those drivers that are slightly more muted through the ball, and for me, feel a bit more powerful through impact, drivers like the Callaway Epic Speed and the TaylorMade Sim 2. So I'm going to hit a shot with each of the 4 drivers that I've just mentioned that I think fit either end of the sort of feel and sound spectrum. Hopefully, by doing that, you'll get a sense also for how they sound and how they feel. So for me, if it was my choice, I tend to prefer those more muted impact sounds. So my choice would be either of the TaylorMade Sim 2 drivers. I think they sound fantastic through the ball, and also one other thing that I really like about the feel of these drivers is that for me, they sound and feel great no matter where on the face I hit them. I am a 5 handicapper, definitely don't always hit the ball from the middle of the face, and when I do hit the ball slightly out of the toe and out the heel with this driver, they still feel well hit, they still feel good through the impact. So if I was choosing a driver based on feel, I think it would be one of the 2 TaylorMade Sim 2 drivers. Now we're going to take a look at the drivers and how they performed on the GC quad launch monitor and using Titleist Pro V1X golf balls. Now for this part, you have to take it with a healthy pinch of salt because firstly, there are certain models that are better suited to the way that I swing the club, and secondly, because I'm quite a fast swinging 5 handicap golfer. I'm not a pro, I'm not a robot, so you have to all sort of factor all these things in. Plus, we tried to get the specs of the drivers as close as possible to each other, but there were some differences, especially when it came to the shafts. So here on the screen is all the data. So these are the averages that I was able to get with each of the drivers that I tested. If you are interested, please do hit the pause button. And now here is a graphic that shows you the performance of the driver within each brand that I got on with the best. So the one that offered me, during my testing, the best combination of not only distance, but consistency as well. As you can see, the performance across the board was really very similar, and I was very impressed. I felt as if the drivers of 2021 that I was testing were easier to hit than in previous generations. I wasn't seeing, on the whole, huge distance gains over drivers that I've tested in the past, but what I did feel was that I was in more control of these drivers than I have been when doing this particular test in the past. So again, it's really hard to pick a winner in this category, but for me, if I was choosing, I think there was one driver that I clicked with, and I've hit it twice now, and I found it easy to hit on both occasions, really easy to launch, offering consistently good distances, but also providing that kind of level of dispersion, that tight level of dispersion that really makes a difference to me and to my game. So if I was picking a winner in the performance category, it would be the Ping G425 LST. Okay, so here are the recommended retail prices of each of the drivers that we tested. And I think it's only fair to talk about the least expensive, and that was the Wilson Staff D9. And with a recommended retail price of £299 or $350, I think you get an excellent driver here. I think it looks superb, both down behind the ball and in the bag. It has a fixed hosel, and for me, I found it very easy to hit during the testing. It possibly spun a little bit more than the other drivers, and that's perhaps why I didn't get quite as much distance, but I still think this would be a very playable driver for me out on the golf course. So when it comes to the overall package that you get from this driver, I think it offers excellent value for money. The next one I'm going to talk about is the Honma T-World GS, because I think those of you who know the brand Honma, you might be expecting the price tag to be a little bit more expensive than it actually is here. And I thought, again, I was impressed by the performance. I think the shaft maybe wasn't quite right for me. Had I gone through a full and thorough custom fitting with Honma, as they do really, really well, I think I'd find something in this driver setup that was really consistent for me. And I'm also not 100% sure whether the head is quite suited to me in the way that I swing the club. Maybe the TR20 from Honma would have been a better option. Having said all of that, I think there is one driver that just edges it in the value category, and that's the Cobra Radspeed. It comes in a little bit less in terms of the price than some of the other drivers that we tested, and yet in terms of the looks, in terms of the feel, and in terms of the performance, it is very much a premium driver. Okay, so on to the all-important overall verdict. Before I tell you which model I'm leaning towards, I think it's worth emphasising just how good the performance was across the board. I think the drivers of 2021, as I've already said, felt easier to hit to me, and I think that's a big deal for golfers no matter what your handicap is. And I think if there's a brand in particular that you're leaning towards, or one that you've used in the past and that you've got trust in, then there's no reason why you shouldn't find a model within that brand that you really like. And I think that when it comes to choosing a driver, there are so many subjective factors that it's well worth devoting some time to thinking about those factors and which ones you think will make the biggest difference to your game. So for me, if it was my individual choice, the one that I would just about lean towards more than the others would probably be the TaylorMade Sim 2 Max. And that's because of the sort of overall package that it offered me. I really like the way that it looks. It offers that kind of modern aesthetic with that classic shape that I really like. I love the way that it sounds, both on shots hit from the middle and when you don't quite catch them. And also the performance really did stack up as well. So as an all-rounder, I think I'd be leaning towards the TaylorMade Sim 2 Max, but it's fair to say there are a whole host of drivers that I tested that I would be more than happy to put into play. So there you have it. That's my look at the best drivers of 2021. If you've enjoyed the video, please do hit the like button and also leave some comments below. What did you think about the drivers that we tested? Which one would you be leaning towards? If there's anything that we've missed, please do leave some comments below. We'd be interested to hear your thoughts. But there you have it. That's it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.